Well, thank you very much, first of all, for the opportunity to be here and for Scott taking on this monstrous task once again from the Marketing Agencies Association. Thank you also to Iris for housing us here today. This is, I've been here many times now and have been, had fantastic support over the last year. So what I'd like to do is just go through what stage the business was at the time that we entered the competition and seeing how far it's come since then, and also explaining the ways in which Iris supported, and the Startup Britain team has supported the progress over the last year, every step of the way. So when I was here a year ago, I was on my own very much. I was the only full-time member of Safetray. I had support through equity I'd given to a product design consultancy, but the day-to-day running of the company was very much me by myself. And at the time I entered the competition, we barely had enough money to pay for the train fare to come down here to present. So that was kind of giving you an indication of where we were. Now I've got a full-time team of 4 people. One of whom is here today, and a board of 5 people altogether, after having secured an investment of £200,000 in an investment round. So really quite significant wins. Additionally, we'd been manufacturing in China at the time that I was last year, and I was doggedly determined to bring that tooling back to the UK to establish manufacturing here, and we have done so. In fact, I can get on a bus from my house and go and visit the factory, which is now pumping out sexy new products. So we're very much delighted with that. Additionally, I was working all the hours of day and night to service 2 markets, Europe and also the United States, and that was really a tricky thing to do. We didn't have distribution in place over there, and so it was very much dealing with end users. And now, this week, we are signing heads of terms for a licensing deal that will see us partnering up with an extremely well-known brand within the hospitality industry to license our product over there at a fantastic royalty rate, which will fuel us in other markets and also in product development. So all very exciting things. And Iris has helped us every step of the way. So when we won the competition last year, that's Mr. Camera in there. We were very much delighted. We went to see Iris here and meet with them. And I'm not sure what my expectations were, but I thought we're a very small company. We're very lucky to have this free support. And I didn't have high expectations of how much they would help us. But they sat round with me and went through the full business plan, looked at financial projections, looked at the way in which we were going to commercialize the product through distribution, through engagement with end users, in our PR activity, in our branding, and in experiential marketing, with trade shows being a very important part of what we do. So this is just the PR recommendations that they went through. So you can see they went through the background of how Safetray was invented, myself being a former waitress and having previously had an events business. And so they looked at the kind of story of the Safetray to date. They looked at the business objectives that we wanted to achieve in the space of a year. So we wanted to continue to select distributors in global markets and help partners grow the business to its full potential. Also develop export and bring about innovative product development. Added to that actually was the investment round, which I'll get into later. So they looked at the role for PR in that, but laterally also looking at branding and experiential marketing. And went through the kind of approaches that they would take in order to help grow the business. So what I'll do is I'll come back at the end of the talk just to go through exactly how many of those aims and ambitions were able to be achieved at the end of the year and how we went about doing that. So first of all, we wanted to get our proof points together. Safetray, I'll just run and grab one now so that you know what I'm talking about. Safetray is a tray that prevents accidents from happening in hospitality venues and hospitality operators because it has a secret device, retractable device on its underside, which gives complete stability over the tray. So that was the product we were trying to push forward, but what we were finding was, because safety isn't sexy, it was quite difficult to convince people that accidents really do take place on a regular basis. There's a big reaction and a denial of any accidents ever occurring in any venues that you'll ever hear of, even though consumers will say, well, actually, there was an accident last week, there was an accident last night. So we went about doing a completely unbiased survey that was put together by Iris, and it gave us some fantastic results. I've just put up 2 of the results up there, simply because it shows how many times these accidents take place and the impact that it has on business. Things like, did you ever try and avoid using a tray, for example, taking multiple trips? Now, over 60% said that they had done, which is an added cost and time on venues. So that showed some of the financial implications of uncertainty in using trays, but also the fact that over 90% of people had seen somebody else having an accident involving a tray shows how frequent they actually occurred. So with the multitude of responses that we got from this survey, we were able to put together our proof points and use them in a press campaign. We also looked at the value proposition of Safetray, so we did a lot of work surrounding all the different implications from staff to the customer to the bar themselves so that we could pull that together. I had been on my own, as I said, for quite a considerable amount of time, and so the brand had kind of become part of me. And when I suddenly found myself with a team and with investors and with other supporters and advisors, I had to go through a process which was surprisingly painful of separating that brand out from me and thinking, well, actually, what is Safetray? If Safetray was a person, what would this person be into? What clubs would they go to? What books would they read? What magazines would they read? So that I could visualize this separate being and then educate everybody working with Safetray about who that person was and what that brand was. So I put together some after we'd had a session with the whole team so that they all understood how to communicate that brand in social media, in their interactions with customers, in their interactions with different markets. And I also put together some mood boards just about the kind of imagery that I thought should be attached with Safetray. So I was going very much for a kind of a soul bath, slightly vintage, retro vibe, which reflects, the table service that you used to see in programs like Mad Men, and so that's what we were going for. And so Iris, after they'd pulled together their proof points, set about putting together our marketing materials to take to trade shows, reflecting this kind of imagery and this kind of style. And they did a really good job with it. The image, unfortunately, is a little bit blurred on that picture. But this is just one example of a leaflet that they put together. They also worked on our tagline, which to date had been tipple without the topple, which I was quite proud of, but unfortunately it only really works in the UK. In America, they don't understand tipple without the topple. So we desperately searched for another tagline, and Iris came up with the brilliant, the hardest working tray in the business, which we felt reflected the brand well and was understood by all markets. As you can see, we had a cocktail glass on that leaflet there, and clearly a wine glass. That didn't work for the Middle East, which was one of our most exciting markets that opened up. So this was at a trade show, Gulf Food, and you can see the poster in the background is a cup of tea and a red liquid of some sort of a non-alcoholic variety, because you have to be aware of the markets that you're going into and whether or not certain aspects of your branding is acceptable, and alcohol wasn't acceptable there. Iris also but one of our members of the team was responsible for social media, And so she took a trip to Iris and talked a lot about how we could use social media platforms. It is a trade product. We do sell to trades, but we find that, you know, social media can be really good. You'll find us on Facebook where you can like us, and this is one of the fun things that we did just to get attention to the tray. It's called I've Got the Whole World on My Tray, and we went around various locations taking our pictures with various things on our trays. So we continue to do that. We also do other fun things to, again, just engage the users and engage our people who have liked us on Facebook and followers on Twitter and Pinterest. We, rather than have dress down Fridays, which we think is perhaps a bit tired and old now, we started to do monthly dress up Mondays. So we've had Bugs Malone, and we've had various other costumes, pirates, which we continue to do, which is just a fun thing, which actually has got quite a lot of interest on Facebook, and people emailing us about these ridiculous costumes. But it just, again, reflects the fun of the brand and keeps people interested in different ways. So going back to what we'd set out to do 12 months ago and what Iris supported us with, we, in terms of the press received, we were wanting to be quite focused on trade publications. So we got into restaurant management over in the States, again, based on the survey. They pretty much just copied and pasted the press release put together by Iris. So it shows how well written it was. Also food service equipment reports, food service radio, event magazine and foodies magazine. So it was good to have that trade publication focus, whereas before we were just generally trying to talk to press and get the brand out there. The Iris were also really helpful in supporting me on television. We had talked on BBC News 24, which was quite a scary experience, never having done live television before and doing it remotely in Edinburgh. So you're just staring at a camera with not a lot of cues and not seeing the person that you're speaking to. So it's kind of like extreme Skype. And they were very helpful in giving me some pointers that I just could keep going through my head. And that kind of support is invaluable as well. We now have distribution in place for the Middle East. As I said, we're signing a licensing deal for the US, but we had distribution in place for there too. We're looking at Australia and, of course, progressing the United Kingdom. And Iris, again, have been supportive every step of the way in their research, and even putting together user sheets to help people learn how to use the trays when we're not present, which is something that, although it's not the most exciting form of marketing, it's communicating your brand and communicating your product, which is extremely important when you're not physically able to be in all those places with all of those customers. In terms of advice for the future, that I would suggest to all startups is to trust your instincts, because every time there's been a little bit of a niggle, even over marketing material or press releases, if it doesn't feel right in your gut, then it probably isn't right, and you should really revisit those moments where you feel that something just isn't sitting well, because my biggest mistakes have been as a consequence of ignoring that little niggle. I would say believe in your business, because sometimes people think it's funny that I carry a tray everywhere that I go and call me Tray Girl. But if I didn't do that, and if I didn't believe in the product, and if I was embarrassed to take it out my bag every second and talk to everybody about it, then nobody else would believe in the business. Iris wouldn't have believed in the business. My distributors wouldn't believe in the business. And my investors wouldn't have believed in the business and put their money into it. So you have to keep that belief and focus. I also think you have to understand that you will always, when you're creating a game-changing product or service, you will always come up against more opposition than support initially. There will be more people who oppose you and don't believe in it and will talk about the negatives and the things that might go wrong. And I think that just understanding that and accepting that as a part of the process is really important, because if you take those knocks personally, then you'll never grow and you'll never progress. So I've had various people who said I would never be able to export at such an early stage, that I would never get manufacturing established in the UK at a price point with the China products, and various other criticisms that I took as fuel, as fire in my belly to motivate me to prove them wrong. Not in a confrontational way, just in a quiet way, because success is a great answer to opposition. I also would say that all the support that is available through Startup Britain and through competitions put on by the Marketing Association, and all the incredible government support that is out there, I think that we should really appreciate that and recognise that not all countries have that level of support, and we should use all the advice. We don't have to always act on advice that we're given, but at least listen to it, because one day it might become relevant and you'll be able to put it into force. And I wouldn't be where I am today without all the support of my team of investors, and certainly Iris. And I'm a big believer in the harder you work, the luckier you get. Quite often I hear, oh, you're lucky because of that, or somebody else is lucky because of that. Well, if you work really, really hard, you do get really, really lucky. So finally, I would just say, keep fighting. I don't know any businesses that have got anywhere that haven't had horrendously difficult situations to overcome in order to grow. And so when you get those knocks, just keep going, because you'll get there in the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison. Now, we'll change over to Naomi now. But one thing I wanted to do, just to point something out, if you notice this has sort of appeared on the front here. This is where actually always look out and try and spot an opportunity. Richard here, this man here, spotted that we, the so completely organised and marvellously for an international scale, the MAA, forgot to have signage at the front here with people's names on. And his company, Destag, do exactly that, and he has a printer in his bag and he was ready to go. So offered to come up and support. So, you know, at points, keep looking for those opportunities. I'll stop talking and I shall hand over to Naomi.
Thank you. Hi everyone. Very different to Alison. We were with marketing the MAA and took on, well, Pulse took us on, Pulse Group. Is this? Took us on, and we were really, really lucky to get their advice and their support. I'm going to take a slightly different approach to Alison, and it's I'm going to talk more about just the creativity that they added and the materials that we did with them. So, before I start, and before I tell you anything about Rocktails and our product, I want to ask you a couple of questions. So this is a poster campaign that Rocktails once had. And my question really is, what do you think that this really tells you about a product? What does it taste like? And what sort of product is it? Is anyone willing to give me their thoughts on it? It's licking wood, okay. Anybody else? Yeah? Frozen drinks. It's kind of a hint at the bottom with the logo. The shock in her eye. Okay. What do you think the product actually tastes like? What does that poster make you think? It's icy. Okay, what about this one? What does this make you feel about the product? Refreshing? Yeah? Tongue in cheek? Okay. Anyone brave enough to give me any sort of more negative comments on it? Seedy? Yeah? Anyone else?
I don't think it has any relevance to what the actual...
It hasn't got any relevance. Okay, cool.
Too abstract.
Too abstract. What about this one? It says what it does on the tin. Okay, so I'll just let you ponder on that a little bit longer before I tell you a bit more. So, Rocktails is a frozen cocktail. It captured inside each of these pods is a unique blend that we've developed of fruit and vodka. They're 10% ABV, and we've got 3 flavours: raspberry and pear, passion fruit and pineapple, and elderflower and cucumber. We started back in 2010, and when we came to the MAA, all we had was our product, and we'd just gone through our first batch of manufacturing. We didn't have any investors on board, and a bit like Alison, could really not really afford the train down to London to be able to present. But where there's a will, there's a way. So all we really had was this brand cover, and we said we had a brand, but ultimately all we had was our packaging and this look. So one of the first things that when we got to Pulse that we looked at was how we could really sort of flesh our brand out. It was really a case of starting to live and breathe the brand. So we set about putting together some guidelines, and they really helped us with like the tone of voice that we used. An example of that was we're sponsored by Mini, and we had a really cool Mini Countryman zebra printed. And we used to tweet about things like, oh, we're going to get the Mini washed, and the Mini's looking really nice and sparkly, and we'd tweet a photo. And actually, that's really, really boring. And we realised that the tone of voice that we needed to be aspirational and fun, and more about the product and knowledgeable cocktail-related things. The second thing that they helped us with was our graphic assets. So they really did work with us on the creative side, producing all of our creative material, our flyers, our posters, etc. They looked at our colour palette and made sure that we only had 4 colours that we ever used. You won't see Rocktails with a slightly different shade of green or a slightly pinkier pink. It's always going to be 3 colours, and that helps us sort of endorse our brand look. We then worked a bit on a payoff line, and it was around making sure that it told you exactly what the product did. Before our strapline was born wild and fruity, and it was a bit evocative and it probably didn't say the best things about our product. So it changed to fruit blended cocktails, frozen, not chilled. It tells you exactly what it did, and then it tells you exactly how to experience them. They also worked on our photography. So going back to this is the poster campaign that they put together for us. And unlike the first one, this guy, I remember actually sitting in the office trying to Photoshop out some of the hair on his shoulders. And at that point, I probably should have realised that this is not the image to be using. First of all, he's on his own, and unless you've had a really bad day, you're not really likely to drink cocktails on your own. He looks a little bit lonely, and that's not really what our brand is about. It's about being social. Yeah, just a bit lonely and a bit sad. So unlike, I think I should move on. Unlike this one, it's 2 girls having fun. It's in an unidentifiable location. They've both got drinks in their hand. They look like they're having a good time, but it doesn't endorse them being drunk or it's not endorsing irresponsible drinking. But also, more importantly, on the bottom, it tells you exactly where you need to go. There's a website link at the bottom, and it tells you, like somebody said on this side, it says what it does on the tin. So that was our first campaign with Pulse. So the 3 things that we really took away pretty quickly from Pulse was what do you want to say? What do you want it to say about you? Any material that we put out, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter or on our website or stuff that we did in the sort of consumer media, we always had to keep thinking, what do you want it to say about the product? This is a long-known kind of fact, but people make 2 seconds to make an impression of you. The same with a product. People can take 2 seconds to say whether they think that's a product that people are going to like or not. And thirdly, where do you want them to go afterwards? So if they see a product or they see a poster and they see something that they like, they're going to want to know where to go. And that seems really, really basic. But the amount of times we put stuff out and actually it had no secondary sort of pointers to where they should go. So working with Pulse, after we got our guidelines together, they did 3 things really, and it was all based around sort of the creative side. So they worked on our promotional activity, our experiential marketing, and our new pack design. So I'm just going to pull a couple of these out. I could talk for a day on all the fantastic stuff they did for us, but I'll just pull a couple out. So this is just an example. This was us back in 2010 when the product had just launched. And we were doing some promotional activity on the Hayes in Cardiff, where we used to be based. And it was a summer festival, and they'd lined all the streets down the high street with wooden huts. And we decided that we'd have a hut to try and promote our brand. Firstly, who's ever sat in a wooden hut and drank cocktails? Not very many people. The stand and what have you looked like we'd just pulled together stuff from our house, which we had. We didn't have very much money at the time. In terms of our sort of uniform, we had these like really big baggy zebra dresses, not the most flattering or particularly sophisticated outfits. And somebody even said to us, it looks more like cow print than zebra print. And we had these hawker trays, which we thought was going to be great because we could put them around us and we could, walk around and be able to serve quite easily. It wasn't particularly sophisticated and it wasn't particularly elegant, which are the two big things that we were trying to create around our brand. This year, things have changed slightly. So we've gone up quite a few notches. And with the help of Pulse, we've been doing some marketing activity at Taste of London. Did anyone go to Taste this year? Yeah, so you may have seen us there. A big, bright, loud, standout tent where we had a bar and we were serving up our cocktails exactly how you would in your own kitchen. The whole idea around it was a challenge the meltdown. So we had people giving out ice cube vouchers around the event. If they could get the ice cube back to our stand before it melted, then they got a free glass. And so it was really driving people into our stand. And there was a completely opposite feel to what we've been doing in Cardiff. It was vibrant, it was fun, it was energetic. There was a sense of urgency around it. And people, I'm sure, would have gone home remembering what Rocktails really was and having experienced exactly what our brand had to offer. Ooh. So this is just some images that I pulled together from Taste. And when we were in the Hayes in Cardiff, a couple of the other stands that we were around, one was a Celtic carving company, one sold fudge, one lady was knitting, and there was somebody else doing wood carvings, and we were placing our brand alongside them. At Taste, we were alongside 15 Michelin star chefs from around London, and that's exactly where we needed to be placing our brand. So it was really important to pick the events that you do wisely, but also pick other brands that you want to be aligned to. Another example is that we're just launching a campaign with Ted Baker. Again, a really similar demographic to ours, and really is pulling us up into the league that we need to be competing with. And then just lastly, one of the other things that Pulse has really made a big impact with us is our packaging. I remember when we pitched last year, and there was a lot of debate around our packaging, and Scott's smiling because he can remember the comments. And one of the big things that they did was work on our packaging to make it a little bit more premium. So as of today, we're launching our new packaging, and it's going nationwide into Sainsbury's next week. And it's blacker, it's sleeker, it's matte. And they worked tirelessly hard on all the changes and edits, and have been a real fantastic asset to have in our business. So lastly, I just want to say thank you really to the MAA and to Startup Britain, a bit like Alison, for all the fantastic support that we've had. Pulse has really brought us up a huge amount, and you can probably see from our original campaigns. We've now got a brand that is competing alongside Diageo and InBev, and can really stand its own, and that's really just through the help of Pulse and their creative genius. So thank you very much.